So just as Vajrasattva has compassion for us and is dedicated to benefiting us, then we want to create the same attitude towards other living beings. To have compassion for them, not pity, but compassion, and to dedicate our lives to being of service and benefit to them with a good motivation as much as we possibly can. And in a spiritual sense, this means aspiring for full Buddhahood, where we will have the wisdom, compassion, skillful means, and the power to, from our side, be able to benefit others. So generate that motivation. Okay, so we have some questions that people sent in from yesterday. I also want to clarify, because one person sent in and said, why, how about stopping talking about Trump? And how about giving Hillary equal time for pointing out faults? So I want to explain that what I did yesterday was not to criticize Trump, but to show you how the ruminating mind operates. And that people who are rich and famous are not immune from this painful ruminating mind. Yeah, we usually think of objects of compassion as people who are sick or poor, or downtrodden or refugees. That is a very narrow way to look at objects of compassion, because when we talk about the three kinds of dukkha, the first one, the dukkha of pain, that, yes, the obvious suffering that everybody knows, sickness and hunger and thirst and being a refugee and so on. But then there's the dukkha of changing dukkha, where you have happiness and then it vanishes. Everybody suffers from that one. Okay. And then the dukkha of the pervasive dukkha of conditioning, meaning that we are conditioned by our afflictions and our karma. And everybody suffers from that one too. Okay, so just thinking suffering, you have to be poor and downtrodden to have compassion only for those people. That's not what the Buddha's trying to teach us. The Buddha's trying to teach us to open our hearts to everybody. And that means that we don't discriminate against rich and famous people, thinking that they are unworthy of compassion because they have wealth and power. No, if you look at the lives of many rich and famous people, they have incredible misery. It's not the same misery as the poor and sick and downtrodden, but mentally it can be just as excruciating. Yeah, and so if you followed along with the rumination that I was mimicking yesterday of what Trump's doing, you can see that he has a ton of unhappiness. Yeah, that wealth and fame and power do not protect us from unhappiness and samsara. They do not give us higher rebirths. And very often, through abusing wealth and fame and power, we create more negative karma than the poor and downtrodden people. And we become more receptive to lower rebirths in future lives because of that karma. Okay? So, I regularly meditate on compassion for Trump and a lot of these politicians. And I have a dream of being able to give a Dharma talk to the US Congress. Yeah. And it's not because I hate these people. Yeah. It's because really you look at their lives, and I wouldn't want to have any of their lives. Yeah. To be in that position and you know, think in when you have power and fame and you know, money, you are susceptible to create all sorts of negativities. And it doesn't matter who you are. You know, what matters is the values that we have, whether we live as an ethical human being or don't. Yeah. And that is, it doesn't matter who you are. That's the standard, you know, of our own ethical precepts. Mm. But whether we keep good ethical conduct or not, we're still worthy of compassion. Yeah. And so we should cultivate compassion for people. It doesn't matter we like them or don't like them, agree with them or don't agree with them. You know, the Buddhist notion of compassion is based on equanimity. And that's why when you do the message, the meditations to generate bodhicitta, they're all based on equanimity, and we do the equanimity meditation first. Okay, and that's the reason why. Okay, now for the other questions that came in. So, regarding the purification of afflictions and negativities of the body, do these include actions harming one's own body? For example, binge eating, or cutting yourself, or even suicide. Okay, so so does the purification of the body include actions done harming our own body, as well as actions that we do that harm others' bodies? So, more broadly, does Vajrasattva purification apply to actions that are self-injurious and self-destructive? Yes. Okay. Why? Because when we harm ourselves deliberately, you know, through cutting or suicide, or we harm ourselves because our attachment is out of control and we binge eat, okay, the action, all of those actions are motivated by afflictions, okay, and afflictions create negativity. So no matter whether the objects are self or others. So this doesn't mean, it's very important to realize when we say that we do actions that create negativity or negative karma, please do not put on top of yourself that the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha is saying you're a bad person. Okay? Because I had somebody once wrote and said, those of us who are considering suicide have enough suffering, don't make us feel guilty for it. Okay? And it's like, no, that's not the purpose. We're not trying to make you feel guilty. Yeah, we know you have enough suffering. Everybody has enough suffering. Yeah. But what we're trying to do is help you think beyond your own suffering to see that your life is worthwhile and that these harmful intentions that you have, be it towards yourself or others, that these are not who you are, and that your suffering is not who you are. Okay? And it's very important to see beyond this temporary suffering and to see our potential and our inner goodness and our talents and what we can do for the world. Okay? And so to see that, we have to confess our harmful intentions, be they for ourselves or towards others. okay? Because, harmful intentions don't benefit us and they don't benefit anybody else, okay? So we want to imagine, to purify all of those. So to purify things, we need regret. Regret does not mean guilt. It does not mean self-hatred. It does not mean self-contempt. It means that we regret what we did. Okay, so a good example of the difference between guilt and regret is an electric stove, okay, with the coil burners, or nowadays they have them without the coil burners. Yeah, it's very easy with an electric stove when it's not glowing red to think that, touching it is okay, that it's cool. And if you think like that, you very easily, I mean, many of us have done that, touched a stove that is still hot and burned ourselves. Okay? Yeah? Anybody here done that? Yeah? Yeah. Lots of times you think, or you open the oven and you think it's cold and you touch the rack and okay. When you do that, yeah, do you feel regret? Yeah, it's like, I wish I hadn't done that. It's causing pain. Do you feel guilty? No, you don't feel guilty. Okay? So do you see the difference between regret and guilt? Regret, oh, I did something that was harmful. I regret that because I don't want to experience the result. Guilt is a whole different ballgame. Yeah. Guilt involves this whole extrapolation of I am the worst one. I am so powerful, I can make everything go wrong. I should hate myself because I am so ridiculous and stupid and, I'm a hopeless case. Guilt is you are embellishing, you are creating this monstrous story of yourself as totally unworthy. That is very different than feeling regret because you did something that you wish you hadn't done. Okay? So, in the same thing, when we look at our negativities, we regret them, but we don't go into a whole thing of guilt. Okay? Now, having said that, many of us in our families, in the religion we grew up with, we were taught to feel guilty. And we were taught that the more we feel guilty and the more we think that we're sinners and awful people, the more we are atoning for our negative actions. That is totally false. Okay, totally false. We do not lessen our negativity by hating ourselves. Okay, we do not lessen our negativity by making ourselves suffer. Yeah, that is not what Buddhism is saying. Okay, so we have to be very clear about this and not bring stuff we learned as kids that is not true, not haul that into our Buddhist life when it doesn't apply at all. Okay? According to Buddhism, guilt is a defilement that needs to be eliminated. It is not something helpful that we should cultivate. Okay? The same with self-hatred and self-contempt and all that stuff. All those things are inverted forms of pride. They have no place in a Buddha's mind. Okay. What, you think the Buddha, look, he looks so peaceful sitting there. Do you think that he's sitting there going, I committed so much negativity as a sentient being. I am such an evil person. I am hopeless. How did I ever become a Buddha? This doesn't make any sense. Yeah, you ever heard of a guilty Buddha? I mean, of course not. Yeah. So that is not a quality to cultivate in ourselves. It's a quality to overcome in ourselves. So I have come across the names Vajrasattva and Vajradhara. Do these names refer to the same deity? Well, Susan and Suzanne and Susie, yeah, maybe that's not such a good example. Anyway, no. The answer is no. Sometimes Vajrasattva and Vajradhara look alike. Okay, Vajradhara is the form of the Buddha took when he taught the Tantras. Okay, and he's often depicted, in this position, holding Vajra and bell. Sometimes Vajrasattva is also depicted in that position. Okay, that's okay. I mean, you can stand in the same physical posture as somebody else, can't you? So the deities can too. Yeah. Vajrasattva is often, like this, holding the Vajra and bell. And Vajrasattva and Vajradhara get along very well. Yeah. And they both can be depicted in as couples as well. And all the Buddhas get along very well with each other. Yeah. So if during you're coming up during Vajrasattva retreat, some of you are doing Medicine Buddha retreat, don't worry about Chenrezig and Tara feeling jealous because you're paying more attention to the other Buddhas than to them. Okay? Do not impute our qualities onto the Buddhas. They rejoice when we create virtue. They all get along. Chenrezig doesn't take his 1,000 arms and cross all of them together and say, you're meditating on Medicine Buddha, and he only has 2 arms. I'm more important. Don't worry about that. Yeah. And also, you can still, if you have a lot of, some of us have a lot of mantras to say every day, you can do them visualizing the Buddha, whose mantra you're saying, or you can, if you self-generate as Chenrezig. I mean, Chenrezig can say Vajrasattva mantra. Yeah, and Tara mantra and Medicine Buddha mantra. You think Chenrezig is going to go, why should I say their mantra? My mantra is better. I'm going to say that one. They don't have these problems. Okay, so don't worry about it. Yeah. Now, of course, if you're meditating on Chenrezig, you should say Chenrezig mantra. Yeah, and if you're doing the practice of medicine, you should recite that mantra. Sometimes, we will find ourselves meditating on one deity and saying the mantra of another one. I used to think, how can that happen? That's impossible. Until I found myself doing it. So now I know it is possible. Okay, so it's something to be careful of, that you're saying the mantra of the deity whom you're doing the sadhana of. Okay. Our mind is very peculiar, isn't it? What it winds up doing. Okay, so in the prayer book, in the sadhana, it says Vajrasattva meditation is an excellent method to purify the transgressions of your bodhisattva vow. but I'm not quite seeing how it fits with the visualizations. In particular, the precepts of inaction. Yeah, because in the Bodhisattva vow, there's many precepts of where you transgress it by not doing something that you should do. Okay, in the 5 lay precepts, it's doing things that you shouldn't do. Yeah. As monastics, we have both kinds of precepts in the Pratimoksha. Some that say don't do this, and other precepts that say do that. Okay. Okay. So how would you purify, for example, bodhisattva precepts like not helping those who are in need? Do you dig around for the reasons you did not do something? For example, afflictions arising from self-centeredness, and then use the visualization for the purification of mind? Or do you focus on the simultaneous purification to purify subtle obscurations? Okay, so there's a bunch of things to clarify here. Let me read the whole rest of it. Yeah. Okay, can you purify the self-centeredness that prevented you from doing an action? Okay, yes. If yes, which visualization would it be? Any one of the 4. Okay. Or in the case of these bodhisattva precepts of inaction, is the strength of the purification derived more from the thought of more from the strength of the 4 opponent powers than from which visualization you do? Because in the 4 visualizations, it says 1 is for body, 1 for speech, 1 for mind, 1 for subtle obscurations, okay? You can do any of the 4 for any type of transgression, okay? So you have to see which kind of visualization really resonates with you. So the one of fleshing out the body, you can see that, yeah, that relates very much to the body. But you can also do it if you're purifying a transgression of speech or a mental negativity. Okay, so don't think, oh, the one of like fleshing out the body, I really resonate. That one feels so good. But I have all these mental negativities, and I have to, what's the one for mental negativities? I turn on the light. Oh, I almost forgot that one. I don't usually do it because I like the one of fleshing the body. So am I doing it all wrong? Am I not purifying my mental negativities because I'm only doing the first visualization, not the third one? Relax. Relax. It's really the strength of the 4 opponent powers that you're doing, not the particular visualization. And if one visualization really, kind of really helps you feel more purified, do that one. Do the other ones too, give them a chance. But, it isn't that a certain negativity is tied inextricably, inherently to one particular visualization. Okay. In fact, what is the most important element in the purification is the regret. Yeah. Because if you don't have regret for what you've done, then, you're not really purifying it, are you? So that's the real one to come to focus on. Because if you don't regret, you're not going to try and restore the relationship. You're not going to make a determination not to do it again. You're not going to do the remedial action. Yeah. So work on the regret. Yeah. And remember, that is not guilt. Repeat. Yeah. It does not involve beating yourself up. Yeah. And the word, some translations use the word sin instead of negativities. I think there's 3 words that I think should be banished from English. Sin is one of them. Okay? Yeah. And what Buddhism is talking about is not the same as what Christianity is talking about when it talks about sin. Okay? Some translators use that term because they figure, oh, well, it's a familiar term and it's kind of like, misdeed or something like that. So we'll use a familiar term. I don't think it's so good to use familiar terms because they confuse the meaning. Yeah. Somebody translates dakini as angel. No, dakinis are not angels. It's a very different idea than an angel. Okay. So sin is the first one I think we should erase from the English language. Okay. Fault is the second one. Whose fault is it? We've got to find one person and make them at fault. They are the one person who's responsible for this whole entire mess. Okay? So now, they're looking for the fault with the January 6th event. Is one person responsible for that? There's thousands of people responsible for that. So saying it's the fault, because when we say fault, we want to make one person the guilty one. But here, many people are involved. Okay, so I prefer the word responsible to fault. Yeah. We have responsibilities to act in virtuous ways, in ways that create peace and harmony. When we don't keep that responsibility, yeah, we need to renew that responsibility. Okay, so, instead of saying whose fault it is, or I don't know if you have this visualization, but, depends what words your parents use. With the cross arms, of course. Whose responsibility is this mess in the living room? Okay. No, that's not what we mean in Buddhism, and it's not said like that. Okay. We have responsibility, meaning we participate in society. We are one among all sentient beings. And so we have some responsibilities to the group because, believe it or not, it's not all about us. Yeah. Okay, so fault is the second word. Okay. The third word I think we should obliterate is blame. Okay. Again, you're to blame. Yeah. And again, blame, fault means you are evil. You are hopeless. You are a sinner. Yeah, no, this is not the way Buddhism presents it. Okay? So we shouldn't get into who's to blame, or I'm to blame, or you're to blame. Yeah, because when we blame, okay, especially when we blame other people, we are absolving ourselves from any responsibility. We are not taking responsibility for our part that we're responsible for. Because it's so much fun to blame others and find fault in them and make them feel bad, So really important. This is not the way Buddhism does it. Okay. Recently, someone wrote me and they were going through a hard time because they had made some mistake. And they said, this whole thing is all my fault and I'm to blame. And, now it's this big mess. And I could tell just from reading the email, they felt terrible about themselves. And I wrote back and I said, it's not about blame and it's not about fault. Yeah. There were other people involved in making this happen. Yeah. One person cannot make the whole thing happen. Yeah. Now, you might say, well, the Unabomber did it all by himself. Yeah, he's the one who's at fault. Remember, what was his name? Ted somebody. Kavinsky, yeah. Yeah, Ted was the one who bombed the Oklahoma building. Yeah. Oh, that was McVeigh. Tim, Ted, kind of. Okay, I almost got it. Um, yeah, it could have been Tom. Oh, so anyway, you say, oh, but they're one person who did that. Well, no, there's lots of other people who were involved. Who made the explosives? Who makes explosives available in stores or on the web? Who prints out on the web how to put the ingredients together for the explosives? Who puts out on the web how to make ghost guns? Yeah, the ghost guns, the ones that it's like self-publishing. It's 3D. What do they call it? Printer, a 3D printer that will make a gun, and those guns have no registration numbers on them. So if they're used in a crime, it's impossible to trace the gun. Yeah. So who put those instructions on the web? Who makes all the ingredients for those? Yeah. Who makes a 3D printer knowing that it's capable of creating a ghost gun? Yeah. I think if you're talking about responsibility, it's not just the person who gets the weapon. It's a whole lot of other people who help create the weapon. Yeah. And the old saying that weapons don't kill people, people kill people. If that were true, then why do we give military weapons to the military? We should give them all forks, because the weapon doesn't kill anybody. So it doesn't make any difference whether you have an AK-47 or a fork, because that's not going to kill anybody. Yeah. And so really, let's give the military forks, if that saying is true. It'll cost us much less money as taxpayers. Yeah. So, okay, those three words I think we should get rid of. And, when I talk about responsibility, what I mean is, we do this meditation of how dependent we are on other sentient beings to stay alive. We are not independent entities. We cannot stay alive by ourselves. It's impossible. We don't know how to get the food, shelter, medicine, and clothing as one individual to stay alive by ourselves. Yeah. So we are involved with everybody else, and that means we're related to them. So just as we want happiness for ourselves, we should want happiness for everybody. And then as we take responsibility for bringing about our own happiness and welfare, have some responsibility, for bringing about the happiness and welfare of others. And we will all blow it because we're all sentient beings who mess up. Yeah, but this is how we grow. We fall. Falling down is not the problem. Okay, we're all going to fall down. It's whether you get up or not, and how you get up. That's the thing. Making the problem is falling down, failing, committing, misdeeds. The real thing is, how do we pick ourselves up? Okay. And we can see that some people, when they fall down, literally, they don't really recuperate from that. They don't bounce back. Yeah. I have a scar. I forget which side it's on. One side of my mouth. This is how much I notice. But I fell down when I was a baby learning to walk. My parents had an ashtray on the coffee table. Neither of them smoke, but they had an ashtray. And I was learning to walk, and I fell down and had, cut myself here. Okay. And there was a scar that formed. I was like, I don't know, 18 months. I was a baby. And a scar formed. Okay. I didn't sit on the floor after I fell down. None of you sat on the floor when you fell down when you were learning to walk. We all fell down when we were learning to walk, didn't we? Okay, we all got up. That's the important thing, is you get up and you try again. And look, we all learned to walk. That's fantastic. Yeah. When our parents were potty training us, we all blew it. There were many times when we were not successful. Yeah, but we kept trying, and so did Mom and Dad. And finally, we were potty trained. That's good. Thank goodness for that, So, this is how we learn and grow, is by making mistakes. So the important thing is how we deal with our mistake. And if we just say, I'm a tragedy and hopeless and irredeemable, then that doesn't get us anywhere. Then we're still sitting on the floor. Yeah. Sitting on the floor, sucking our thumb. Oh, I tried to walk and I fell down. I'm a failure my whole life. Feel sorry for me. Yeah.
Someone is asking, is there a difference between visualizing Vajrasattva alone or with its consort? I've learned to do the latter.
Yeah, there is a difference. If you've, I think to do the couple one, that you really need permission from your teacher to do. Yeah, don't do the couple one unless you have that permission. But yes, there is a difference. Yeah, the couple one is the one that's usually done in highest Yoga Tantra.
Someone else is asking, can Vajrasattva meditation purify afflictions in the same way as purifying negative karma, such as purifying anger as well as the negative action it completed? Can afflictions be purified in the same way?
Okay, the word purify affliction is a little bit confusing, because we usually talk about eradicating afflictions or lessening the strength of the affliction. So yes, Vajrasattva can help us lessen the strength of the affliction, especially when we think, we don't just say, anger, anger, I'm purifying. We think of specific instances of anger and how, just being angry itself, it's a miserable state of mind, and how much we harm others just even through thinking negative thoughts about them or saying and doing things. So, yeah, and that, with the anger, we create negativities. So we can want to lessen the power of the anger through doing Vajrasattva because we regret it. And we just don't regret anger as some abstract, it's anger in all the ways that it manifests in our life. Okay? But anger is not completely overcome until we become an Arya and we start going through the different stages of the path that overcome different levels of anger.
Someone asks, what happens when I am the kind of person who actually still feels guilty when I burn myself on the stove?
What happens? I guess you just sit there and feel rotten about yourself. Yeah. The question is, do you want to feel rotten about yourself? Yeah. You're lying to yourself. Yeah. If you feel rotten about yourself because you accidentally, touch the hot stove. I mean, it's a free world if you want to sit there and feel rotten, but what use is it going to do you or anybody else? Yeah. So, I mean, the person asked what happens. Well, that's what happens. You stay stuck. Yeah. So then you have to ask yourself, do I want to stay stuck? Or do I want to grow? Do I want to improve? Do I want to be happier? And just telling yourself, oh, I'm the kind of person who feels rotten about myself from just touching the stove. Just telling yourself that is not true. Yeah, I'm the kind of person. What makes you the kind of person that feels rotten about themselves for touching a hot stove? Yeah? Is there a kind of person? Yeah. You go in the store and you look at different mannequins and you find the one that's the kind of person who feels rotten, and then you wear their clothes. There is no person who's of that type. Yeah. And you don't have a hard and fast personality. So, we are flexible, changeable, sentient beings. We do not, the word personality is a difficult word because we, in a Buddhist sense, personality would just mean what are your usual habits at this particular moment in time. Yeah, the at this particular moment of time is the important part. Okay, but when we say the kind of personality or type of personality, it is inherently existent. Here it is. This box. Yeah. And we put ourselves in that box and we put every other people in that box. And they are that type of personality their entire lives. They cannot change. And I cannot change. That's one of the four distorted conceptions, that impermanent things are permanent. Yeah, we are changing in every nanosecond. And there's no way that we cannot change. We are going to change whether we want to or not. I mean, you're different now than you were when the class started, aren't you? Yeah, you're a different person now than you were yesterday. So don't say I have a fixed personality that's never going to change. That idea is how you keep yourself trapped and limited. Mm-hmm.
And two questions have come in from different people, asking about whether is it okay to not want to restore a relation with someone after purification because of abuse or because of identifying that person, this person is, I now know that person to be a psychopath and I'm very happy without them.
Yeah. Restore the relationship means mentally in your mind, you are releasing the negative attitude you had towards them. Restoring the relationship does not mean that, you go back with your abusive husband or you do something like that. It means mentally you are releasing the anger, yeah, the upset, the fear, or whatever you have in relationship to that person. You said there were two questions.
The two different people asked the same, basically the same question.
The same question. Okay.
Okay. Is there any questions from the floor? I have more here.
Okay. Yeah.
I want to make a comment though on the previous question about the burning yourself. What is really helpful for me to get my mind around karma is that being here at the Abbey, karma ripens all the time. And for me, it ripens in all sorts of like emergency room visits and things like that. I always see them as I'm experiencing the ripening of a karma that could have turned out to be something much worse.
Yeah.
And so when I harm myself in these small ways, I see it as a moment to rejoice and say, oh my goodness, thank goodness. It came out as a burn, it came out as a cut on my finger, it came out on a boo-boo of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And to realize that that is a ripening of a negativity that is not going to throw me into some horrible rebirth. So I've opened up my perspective, and it's really helped my guilty kind of habit on when things happen to me.
And that's the Dharma way of dealing with a mistake or when, we accidentally harm ourselves. I mean, you work out in the forest, so there's all sorts of things that where you get harmed or, whatever. But, if you see them that way, then you're preventing anger, you're preventing self-pity. And that's, one of the ways the Buddha taught us to see when we accidentally harm ourselves. Okay. That's not when you deliberately harm yourself, that's not it. Yeah. Okay. And we never deliberately harm ourselves saying, oh, but then I'll experience suffering and the suffering is purifying my bad deeds, so I think I'll harm myself. No, we don't deliberately harm ourselves.
I can understand how the four opponent powers in general connect to the negative intention and the action, but I'm struggling with the remedial action of reciting mantra.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering how I can develop confidence in the effectiveness of reciting mantra.
Okay. So as the remedial action, there's many things beside reciting mantra. There's making prostrations, making offerings, doing volunteer work for a charity, doing volunteer work at a monastery or a temple. There's many other things we can do. Now, the thing that we can see, oh, okay, if I volunteer at a charity, I'm actively giving something back. So that is a remedial action. We can see that. But I'm just sitting here on my cushion saying, oh, Vajrasattva, Samaya Manupala, wake up again and finish saying it. Okay? No, that's not how we always do it. But, with these kind of religious or ritual things, we come to have some doubt, how is that actually helping? Okay? When you, okay, a mantra is when a particular Buddha was in deep states of meditation, the way they express their realization of wisdom and compassion, the way they quote, quote, put it into words, that's what the mantra is an expression of their realization. So they're in the deep meditation, expressing that outwards. When we recite the mantra, we're going in the other direction. We're saying the mantra, trying to get into that state of mind. Okay? So it's purifying because we're definitely changing the state of our mind. And especially when you do the visualization together with the mantra, it changes how we feel about ourselves. And it changes the mantra. If you recite, especially when you do a mantra retreat, there's a certain vibration to the mantra. When you do a lot of mantra, you can feel it in your body, in your nervous system, the energy of the mantra. Yeah. And you can feel sometimes when your own energy and the energy of the mantra clashes. And that's because our mind is in a very difficult, it's not in the right state at that time. And our own energy is here. And so it's hard, to say Om Mani Padme Hum and imagine Chenrezig, with his arms out like this, or to imagine Vajrasattva sitting there peacefully, with this powerful mantra. You can feel that, and we're going, yeah, this person did this and that person did that, and I hate myself, and our own energy it's clashing with the mantra. So you recite the mantra and it helps us change, our mental energy and the physical energy to a certain extent. Yeah.
I have a comment and then a clarifying question. So I totally love that, the elimination of the word sin. I also found it interesting to know that the word sin means missing the mark, which really was helpful for me. So then the clarifying question is, so in my visualizations, that kind of works for me, saying missing the mark. So when I'm regretting, I kind of say to myself, I'm regretting, but I missed the mark, because then it moves my mind towards aspiring to what the mark is, to what I'm aspiring to.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what words you use.
Right.
If that way of explaining to yourself, what's important is the meaning, and so that meaning that those words have for you is good. So yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I
with
like
that.
the meaning, missing the mark.
Yeah.
This process of purification, how do you classify it in terms of phenomena? Is it evident, slightly hidden, or very hidden?
Whoa. The process of purification. A process is always a bit difficult, is it? To label. I think it involves it's a consciousness. With our consciousness, we are changing our consciousness. Yeah, something like that. Is it evident? I don't know. Maybe when you become very sensitive, maybe it's an evident phenomena for people who are very sensitive. For the rest of us, maybe it's a hidden or even very hidden. That's a good question. Ask a Geshe too.
Just wanted to share some of my experience with the mantra. When I first started saying Vajrasattva, I felt absolutely nothing. It was just words. But after having done this practice for a few years now, I can feel the vibration or the energy. So this makes me think that it's not like the words themselves have the power, it's our mind that gives it the power
Yeah.
by doing the practice over time.
Yeah.
So sometimes mantras sound a bit magical, especially like New Age people say this mantra and your life will be transformed.
Yeah.
It's
No,
our mind that
no,
does it.
it's our mind, and it's involved with all four opponent powers. It's not one opponent power. It's four. Yeah, and so it's the others that also make the mantra powerful too.
And this thing about is purification evident. I mean, it's also you feel lighter at the end sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think it can be evident in that way.
Yeah, if it's a lighter feeling, or like I said, you understand something, you understand the Dharma better. But one thing to avoid is this thing of, okay, do I feel the vibration of the mantra? Do I feel lighter? When you start looking for those things, and oh, it's a good meditation, oh, it's a bad meditation, we're not always so adept at discerning good and bad meditations, and that can really keep us quite trapped, all this evaluation of good and bad, and do I feel light, and do I feel heavy? Just do the practice. Yeah, create the causes. And, the result comes. You don't have to always be looking for, I mean, you just like felt lighter. Okay, so that came one day, you felt lighter. Good. You didn't after every session go, do I feel lighter?